Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a story you might have skipped right over in the biblical book of 2 Kings. On the surface, it seems pretty simple, a story about loss and getting things back. But what if it's not simple at all? What if, hidden inside, is a secret blueprint for something cosmic?
So let's just kick things off with that big question. What if this story, a really personal account about a woman losing her farm, isn't just a historical footnote? What if it actually holds the key to, well, pretty much everything?
Okay, this verse right here, this is the moment everything changes. And you have to understand, the king's command goes way beyond just being fair. He doesn't just say, give her the farm back. Nope, he says, give her the farm back and pay her for all the crops she missed out on for 7 years. I mean, that's not just getting back to normal. That's something else entirely. And that idea of radical, over-the-top generosity, that's our key to unlocking this whole thing.
All right, so to really get why that moment is so huge, we've got to go back to the beginning. Let's dig into the very human story at the center of all this.
So meet our main character. This woman is, well, she's been through the ringer. On one hand, she's well-known, respected, and she has experienced an unbelievable miracle. Her own son was resurrected by the prophet Elisha, the highest of highs, right? But now, the absolute lowest of lows. A brutal 7-year famine hits, and she loses it all. Her home, her farm, everything. After 7 years, she comes back totally broke with only one last hope, begging the king for help.
Now here's where things get really interesting. This famine, it's not just a random act of nature. The text is very clear that something else is going on. This was deliberate.
And look at this specific language here. The Lord has called for a famine. That one word, called, is everything. In English, it might sound kind of soft, passive. But in the original Hebrew, it's way more powerful.
Yeah, the Hebrew word is kara, and it doesn't mean suggested or allowed. It means to summon, to appoint, to proclaim. It's what a king does when he calls a servant. So get this. This famine isn't an accident. It's an appointment. God is actively calling it into existence for a specific reason and for a specific time.
And this just adds this whole other layer of tension, doesn't it? She does the right thing. She listens to the prophet's warning and gets out of there. But where does she go for safety? To the land of the Philistines. Israel's sworn enemies. The irony is incredible. To survive, she has to leave the promised land and go live with the enemy.
Okay, now let's jump to the climax of the story, when she comes back. And this is where things get so perfectly timed you just can't call it a coincidence. This is what you'd call hidden providence at work.
I mean, you couldn't write this better if you tried. Just picture it. The woman finally gets her chance to appeal to the king. At that exact same moment, for whatever reason, the king turns to Elisha's servant Gehazi and says, "Hey, tell me about all the amazing things your master has done." And just as Gehazi gets to the part of the story about Elisha resurrecting a boy, who walks in? The woman and her son. It is absolutely unbelievable timing.
You can just imagine Gehazi's eyes bugging out. He basically yells, "My lord the king, this is the woman, and this is her son, the one Elisha brought back to life." He's not just a storyteller anymore. He's a witness, pointing to living, breathing proof. But this isn't just for dramatic effect. There's something legal going on here.
See, this is basically a courtroom scene. Ancient law required 2 or 3 witnesses to establish a claim. So let's count them up. Witness number 1, Gehazi, who's telling the story. Witness number 2, the mother who's making the appeal. And witness number 3, the son himself. He's the living evidence. His very existence, his resurrection, becomes the legal proof that seals the deal and gets her inheritance back.
Okay, this is the part where we zoom out. Way out. Because this isn't just a feel-good story about one woman getting her farm back. This is a pattern, a blueprint. And once you see it, you start to see it everywhere in the biblical story. It's a simple 3-part pattern. First, there's discipline or loss. That's the famine. Second, there's preservation in exile, her 7 years away. And third, there's a total over-the-top restoration. Her story is a perfect little microcosm of this much bigger idea.
And you can see this pattern playing out across the whole Bible. The Torah warns that exile will happen. Then in books like Kings, we see it happen. Then the prophets come along and promise a great return from that exile. Then, bam, the Gospels show us that resurrection is the real key to getting our true inheritance back. And it all leads to the book of Revelation, where we see the ultimate restoration, the whole creation made new.
I love this analogy.
Imagine you're a farmer. A drought forces you off your land for years. When you finally come back, you're expecting nothing but weeds and ruin. But instead, you find not only your farm waiting for you, but a check for all the harvests you missed. That's what's happening here. That is covenant restoration. It's not just fair, it's wildly, unbelievably generous.
All right, let's bring it all home. For this final part, we're going to do the biggest zoom out of all and see how this entire blueprint points directly to and is perfectly fulfilled in the person and work of Jesus Christ. Think about it. Every part of her story is a physical picture of a much deeper spiritual truth. The famine of food? That points to our spiritual hunger. Her physical exile? That's a picture of our spiritual exile from God. Getting her land back? That points to being restored to God's kingdom. And getting paid for all the lost crops? Well, that's the promise of eternal reward.
So, what's the big takeaway? This small story, kind of hidden away in 2 Kings, has the Gospel's DNA all over it. It teaches us that loss isn't the final word, that sometimes exile is actually a place of safety, that resurrection is the ultimate guarantee of our inheritance, that God's timing is always, always perfect, and that when God restores things, He doesn't just make them good, He makes them better than before.
And so that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This ancient pattern kind of forces us to look at our own lives differently, doesn't it? It makes you wonder, what if the famines and exiles in our own stories, the seasons of loss, the times of confusion, aren't just meaningless tragedies? What if they're actually part of a much bigger story of restoration, one that we just can't see yet?